Well, hello and welcome to AzureWell's monthly podcast. My name is HR Payne. Our episode today is titled Lyme Beyond the Bite, Chronic Stress and Whole Body Wellness. And let's be clear from the start, we're not here to talk about Lyme as a disease or about how to treat a disease. What we're here to explore is what Lyme can teach us about chronic stress and the importance of whole body wellness. For most people, Lyme isn't really a household name. And for others, the word immediately sparks this image of tick bites. And then for others, it's unexplained health challenges. But research continues to show that the Lyme story is really as simple as a single bite. And really beneath the surface of these frustrating and often mysterious symptoms lies a deeper truth. The way our bodies respond to the cumulative stressors is often more significant than one factor alone. When we look beyond a single diagnosis, Lyme becomes actually a lens, a way of seeing how the body tips into imbalances when stressors converge, whether it's nutrient imbalances or hidden toxins, environmental exposures, or even emotional stress. The combined burden can push the body really beyond its capacity to adapt. And this is what research has really identified with as the threshold phenomenon. And it reminds us that wellness is not determined by one exposure, but by the resilience we build in our daily lives. Today, we're joined by Dr. Alphonzo Monzo, a naturopath, practitioner, researcher, and author of the Alphonzo Body Systems. Dr. Monzo, welcome. Great to have you again, sir.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Dr. Monzo, you're not here to talk about Lyme as a disease or how to treat it. Instead, I think you're here to help us reframe the question. And what Lyme really teaches us is that it's not about a single bite, right? It really points us to a much bigger picture. It's about the condition of the body before and after the body's terrain and how it's shaped by chronic stress and the ongoing need to maintain vitality and whole body balance.
Yeah, it's really important because we can also look at some people get the bite and have very little to any symptoms. And some people, it ruins their life. So why such a big difference? If it was all the same, why is the big difference? And so that really gets into the topic today, and we're really going to get into some really good naturopathic foundational principles that we really understand about the difference between the germ and terrain theory and how toxins build up in the body and that whole process. So I think this is going to be really informative to people to really see how does the body really work.
Yeah, and it's not just applicable to one specific label of a symptom. This could be the underlying root to our health in many symptoms.
Probably most, what we call most diseases or specifically a lot of the autoimmune stuff that's out there. Yeah. So I think we will jump right into our slides and start the process. So as you can see, Lyme beyond the bite, chronic stress and whole body wellness. So we're going to talk a lot here about the germ theory and terrain theory. Now, this is a very well known in the field of holistic healthcare, especially naturopaths. This is very well known. Not so much in the general public. You really started hearing a lot of this more when we got into 2020. The terrain theory started coming up because there was a lot of talk about viruses and what was COVID and all that stuff. So people started talking about, is it really about germs or is it more about the terrain? And so here's our basic outline for what we're going to cover. We're going to cover the basics of chronic stress and whole body wellness as it relates to Lyme, but also as it relates to everything, because we don't want this just to be a discussion on Lyme, because we don't really want to focus on diseases. And we're going to explain that here in a minute. Now, our focus is not on disease, but on the person. Causal issues to chronic stress. We're going to talk about lifestyle tips, and then nutrients, and then of course what supplements AzureWell might have to help with the body's processes of detox and terrain and the gut health and all those type of things, because that's the real causes. So we're going to address the cause. So here's some just basic concepts, specifically kind of about Lyme, but that's really, you could apply this same slide to almost any disease out there. First, we don't treat diseases. There are labels, and unfortunately, the labels almost never tell you the cause. Now, some of the labels might be kind of descriptive, like ulcerative colitis. Okay, that tells you there's inflammation in the colon, and there's probably ulcers. But why? Don't know. So, does that label really do anything for you? Not really. It sells drugs, but it really doesn't do anything for actually figuring out why you have that label. So we don't treat the diseases. We look at the person and the cause. The second one is testing is not always accurate for autoimmune. And really, you could say it's not really that accurate for a lot of things. It's like these testings can be very limited. They often can't look at all the different causes of the body. They're often only looking at one thing, and so they often miss a whole lot of stuff. It's kind of like not being able to see the tree through the forest. It's like, what are you looking for? Are we looking for something in the blood? Well, what happens if it's not in the blood? What happens if it's in the cells? Did looking in the blood tell you anything about the cells? So really, and when it comes to Lyme, we know that the testing is not always accurate at all. I've seen a lot of people who go and get testing and nothing. And then a couple of years later, they get tested again, and then they find it. But they knew they were bit like 3 years prior. So it's like, and then some people, they never find anything. But I can find all types of stuff when we do our scans as far as toxins and infections and all that stuff. So testing is not always accurate. And so it's not all in your head. When you're having a problem, most likely the problem is we're not looking in the right place. Wellness is complex. We need to address the cause. And as you're going to see, cause is not always A for A and B for B. That's kind of more of what we get in the medical field. You get symptoms, they label it a disease, and now that they have disease, they have A, they know what to treat A with. But the reality, when I have this conversation with people all the time, because people write me all the time and say, I have this problem. Do you think it's X? And it's like, well, it could be 20 different things. It could be 100 different things. The cause could be so many different things. It's like we really need some way to narrowing down and figuring out what it is. And most likely, it's a combination of a bunch of things that have accumulated. And so it's not so easy to say it's one thing. That's just the reality. And then we have something called terrain theory versus germ theory. We're going to describe that in a minute. But for just basics for everyone to get on the same page, the primary belief in our country and in modern medicine, allopathic medicine, is germ theory, that the germs create the diseases. That has not always been the original view, nor has the original view ever really been disproven or extinct. It has always been there. There's always been a remnant of people who believed in terrain theory, which probably was the more scientific one and actually a lot more proof. But somehow, like a lot of things, the germ theory got all the credit, even though the science wasn't really there, and people just went with it, and there's big money behind it. So that's what we have now. So we're going to talk about the difference between the two. And when you think about it, it's just logical when we show you. I mean, a simple picture, and it's like, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense, but this one does. And then we have homotoxicology. So homotoxicology is about toxins building up in the human body. And it actually explains the process of how toxins work from the outside of the body into the body, all the way into the cells. And you don't want that, because the deeper they get, the more problems you have. And so the last one is, you don't have to suffer. We just want to clean up the body. So this is going to be kind of our topics in the basics, and then we're going to get into the other areas.
Dr. Monzo, when you have a client that comes in, how often, if ever, do you diagnose with a specific label?
Never. Never. Yep, we don't diagnose. And that's not just because there are certain legality around it, because there is. Yeah, you actually have to be a physician to diagnose. But the reality is, it doesn't fit our beliefs and our paradigm in natural healthcare, because the concept is completely different. In some ways, the disease doesn't really exist. We're not saying the person doesn't have health problems. What we're saying is ulcerative colitis doesn't exist. Lyme doesn't exist. And when people say, well, yeah, it really does, it's like, really? It's not an entity. So if you think it really does exist, then bring me a baker's dozen of ulcerative colitis. Can you bring me a half a pound of Lyme? And then you realize, oh, wait, you can't do that. That's right, because it's a label. And then the problem with the label is, does the label tell you what the cause was and how to get rid of the cause? And the answer is
yeah.
So it's like, well, why would we waste our time giving you a name that doesn't help you?
In 10 cases that walk through the door labeled as Lyme, in any one of those, do you ever treat the condition that's labeled?
That's a good question. Very, very rarely. Now, one of the benefits to the label sometimes is it tells you where the problem is, just because of this description, but it doesn't tell you what the problem is caused by. So you almost never really treat that, because you're really going to go, okay, let's look at Lyme again. Okay, they're basically saying that you have this infection, these bacteria infections, because of a bite, and so they want to kill off the infection. We're sitting here going, do we really want to do that? Are there really infections? Why is the infection there? Which people will understand when we get into the terrain theory. And with the example of ulcerative colitis, it's like, okay, this is nice. I know the problem is your colon has inflammation. Why? Well, we're going to look at what are the causes to the inflammation. Nutritional deficiencies, toxins, unbound iron, just a whole list. Is it mental emotional stress? Was it trauma? Is it scar tissue? I mean, there's so many things we can look at. So we never really treat the disease label. We only use that really to say, okay, we know the problem is over here, but Now let's find out why.
I think that 10 people can come in through the front door, all with the label of Lyme. And each of one of those 10 people can walk out with a different strategy in supporting the body and their wellness.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into it. This is fascinating.
All right, we did that one. So let's get into it. Train, germ. Okay, so germ theory is been made popular because of modern medicine. You can see the main person who made it popular was Louis Pasteur, very well known in our culture. There's a phenomenal book called Pasteur versus Bellechamp. That's a great book if anyone wants to really do the research in this, because when you really get into it, you find out there was a lot of questions around Pasteur. There's a lot of questions about his real integrity. He did a lot of experiments that they've never been able to duplicate. He appeared to be someone who took credit for ideas that were not his and popularized things that was not his work. So basically, he kind of plagiarized a lot of stuff. But his idea was germs are the cause of disease. And so if you can see the fishbowl there on the left, if you have this toxic environment, what's the reality? Does the germs move in and create the toxic environment, or does a toxic environment attract the germs? So terrain theory is the opposite, where it says it's the internal environment is key. So germs are only scavengers, not invaders. Okay, so this is the naturopathic belief. This was defended by Anthony Bellechamp. And so think of it this way. Think of your body as a temple or as a house. Do cockroaches move into your house and tear it up and make it dirty? Or when your house is dirty and a mess, do the cockroaches come in? If your house is really clean, do you even get a cockroach problem? Probably not. You see the difference? So the terrain theory is saying if the environment is clean, if the body is clean, the internal environment is clean, the scavengers don't have to come in and clean things up. And a lot of times, this is a major mistake, is people don't realize a lot of the infections, the pathogens that move into the body, are actually there to help clean up the body and prevent things from getting deeper into the tissues and the cells. So if our first approach is let's just kill them, well, why were they there in the first place? Well, probably because there's a lot of toxins. So now if you kill them off, what happens to all the toxins? They go deeper into the body. And you're going to understand why that's important when we get to the next topic. So those are the difference. Those are the big names. And then, of course, the treatment is a lot different, because if you believe the germs are moving in and causing the problem, the pathogens, then we have to kill the pathogens. So we have anti-drugs as, anti-parasitic, anti-bacteria, anti-whatever to kill them off. And you have vaccinations. Let's give you a little bit of it and see if your body can fight it off. Whereas if you think it's the terrain that attracts the germs, we're not saying germs don't exist. We're saying they're not the main cause. So then what do? Well, now we treat the person. We clean up the body. We make the host stronger, and we make it uncomfortable for the scavengers, or we really make it to where the scavengers don't have a job anymore. There's no food for them. There's nothing for them to be attracted to in that environment, so they move on to somewhere else. And this is like a basic natural principle. That's what naturopathic healthcare is all about, or medicine, or naturopathic doctors. It's the belief in how does nature work. And if we look in nature, this is how it works. When you have a dumpster somewhere, what's attracted to the dumpster? The flies and the rats and the cockroaches. But if you have a nice pristine house, you don't see all that stuff. So why are they attracted to one person versus the other?
You know, David Stelzer says the same thing about crops.
Yes.
And if the crops are in balance, meaning healthy, nutrient dense, they're in without imbalance, then they will not attract pests where you need pesticides. And those pesticides ultimately cause other deficiencies in the crop, which causes more pest issues. So, well, I think at the end of the day, I think it's safe to say these little buggers are just opportunists.
Yep.
And anything that is an imbalance, that's when they start to thrive.
Yep.
It's good.
From the dust of the earth. So we have to remember how much we are like the earth and the plants, and of course we need the plants. But it's the same concepts. So here we get into the concept of homeotoxicology. It's a really fascinating subject, and this is just a very brief description. You can get very detailed in studying this as a practitioner. But what they describe is these 6 phases of how toxins get in the body and really how the body works. And you can see the first phase of the body is excretion. The body wants to expel the toxins out of the body. And we do that a lot of ways. Like we make mucus and we can blow the mucus out or cough the mucus out. We can cough things out of our lungs. We can sweat things out. We have the kidneys, we have the large intestine. We have all these ways to excrete and get things out of the body. Now, unfortunately, the medical system typically doesn't like the excretion phase because it's not comfortable, right? A lot of people don't want to be hacking up stuff or running to the bathroom, maybe with the runs or so. A lot of times what they will do is they will put you on some type of anti-drug to force the body not to cough suppressant, to force your body to not eliminate toxins. And what does that do? Well, now that forces the toxins to go a deeper level. And then the body has to go to the next phase. So if we can't excrete it out, now the body is going to go into inflammation, like a turbo cleanse. Which is activated by the defense systems of the body. So now the body's going to try to heat it out, and that's a good thing. So obviously, when we get inflammation, we don't think it's good. We're like, oh no, inflammation, but there's a purpose there. You could think of a fever, or you could just think of inflammation to help sweat and get things moving again. But of course, we have anti-inflammatories. So if you get thrown onto an anti-inflammatory, what happens? Well, now the toxins move deeper into the body because the first 2 phases were suppressed or they were not working for whatever reason. Maybe you're overwhelmed, and the body's not doing these phases appropriately. So now the body goes to the 3rd phase, which is deposition. So now this is where the toxins go in and get stored in the extracellular space. So this is the space outside the cells. So now the toxins are moving a little bit deeper in, and they're outside the cells now. And this problem is you're going to get a lot of inflammation and injury to the outer layer of the cell membrane. Not good. So now the body is still trying to move that stuff out. But if we don't work with the body and do proper detox and cleanse and open up the elimination channels, then it's going to go to the next phase, which is an impregnation phase. So this now means the toxins are starting to invade into the cell. That's not good because now you're going to have all kinds of problems inside the cell. And the body can only keep up with that for so long. And it's going to go to the next phase, degeneration phase. So now you're having destruction of all the functions inside the cell. And the cell is starting to lose its energy, it's losing its structure, it's too toxic to keep up. The body doesn't even want to replicate it. The body doesn't really necessarily want to destroy it because maybe it doesn't even have the building blocks to make new cells. So now the cells are becoming very unhealthy and old. And then eventually, if nothing's done to get that stuff out, it's going to go to the next phase, which is differentiation phase. Some people call this neoplastic changes in the cell. So this is where the cell mutates. And now it's going to become an unhealthy cell, and we can have all kinds of names for unhealthy cells. But this is now a cell that can no longer perform its normal functions. So this is why this is so important to understand, is because everybody is somewhere within these phases. And different parts of the body can be at different phases of this disease process. You could call it that if you want. But this is just the unhealthy process of toxins getting deeper and deeper in the body. And you can see why the medical treatment sometimes really isn't the greatest thing, because it often goes against these phases and makes it worse.
So these homotoxic phases, excuse me, are really what's describing the threshold phenomena.
Yes.
Where the tissues reach a certain saturation of toxins that hits a threshold that it escalates.
Yes. And actually, if we throw up the slide again, you will see not only that, but because these toxins are building up and we have opportunistic invaders out there that really want to, they're actually designed to help keep this cleaner, right? They're designed to keep us from getting to phase 4 or 5 or 6. So that means if they do start moving in and you get bacteria and you get parasites, or if you get bit by something that transfers something into the body, it comes into the body and says, oh, look, of all these stored toxins in the extracellular space, we have food. We have a job here. And if we start killing them off, then the toxins go deeper into the next phase. And guess what? When you get exposed to more invaders, they're going to go deeper into the cell. So the deeper the toxins go, the deeper the pathogens are going to go. And then that's not a good sign, because then the pathogens make their own toxins. So then we have to talk about the elimination systems. You know, you don't have to suffer, clean up the body. We have these, really, there's 5 main elimination organs, but overall there's 6 drainage pathways. The liver is actually not an elimination organ. In other words, the liver doesn't dump something straight out of the body, but it is the major filter of filtering toxins for the body. And then the liver passes it on out through other systems like the colon and the kidneys, lymph. So liver is a huge one, and almost everybody needs a liver support these days. I think this is what people need to understand too. I have so many people that come in, and after we do some evaluations, they see how much stuff has accumulated, and they just freak out. Like, how did I get this? Where did I get this stuff from? How can I have mercury? How can I have this? How can I have that? And it's like, well, it's very simple, folks. If you're living and breathing, if you're eating, if you're drinking, you are exposed to so much. The environment we live in now is extremely toxic. So we can't live in fear of the environment. We can't live in fear of the parasites. We can't live in fear of, oh, am I going to get bit by a tick? Instead, we just have to work on keeping our body clean. You're going to get the toxins. And if you don't ever do anything about them, they're building up, no doubt. And so this is what happens, is most people wait too long to actually get the toxins out of the body until something starts breaking down. And by the time something is breaking down, it's like, well, remember those phases? You must have had toxins for a very long time. Maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They've been there. They've been causing problems, but they've just been working themselves deeper and deeper. So Almost everyone today needs a liver cleanse. The colon is a major sewer. It's a major organ that removes waste from the body. Obviously, the feces has to be removed. The colon doesn't really absorb many nutrients at all. There's only a few. It does reabsorb your water. So it is a place to move toxins out. But if the toxins are sitting there too long, so you're not having bowel movements, and this is what we're going to explain real quick. How do you know what type of drainage support do you need? Well, everyone needs liver. But for the colon, just ask the simple question. How many times do you go to the bathroom every day? You know, every meal you're eating, you should be going to the bathroom. It should be moving out. Whatever is going in should be coming out. If it's not coming out, it can sit in there too long, and those toxins then can get reabsorbed through the colon lining back into the bloodstream. You don't want that. And that's why there's things out there called binders, which a lot of people are confused by these terms, but binders are really only substances that are supposed to bind up the toxins in the colon and remove them out of the body. Whereas chelators are substances that actually pull the toxins out of the cells and the tissues. Now, those words oftentimes in this field get used interchangeably and incorrectly sometimes. I see a lot of people who don't really understand the difference between a chelator and a binder. The binder is really for binding up the stuff in the colon and getting it out. The reason why it's confusing is chelators come from a Greek word that means claw-like, and the chelator binds to the substance and pulls it out. And so since it has a binding action, people think that's a binder, but typically when we use the word binder, we're really talking about just binding stuff up in the colon and moving it out so it doesn't get reabsorbed. You have the kidneys. Look at that. They filter our blood of waste at an astonishing rate of 150 to 180 liters every 24 hours. That's a lot. So the kidneys are filtering out all this stuff. You have the lymph. Just 1 or 2 episodes ago, we had a whole conversation about the lymphatic system. It's this web that extends throughout the body, and it collects waste from the cells and from the tissues and puts it into the blood so it can be dealt with by being detoxed by the liver and then processed out through the kidneys. The lungs. A lot of people don't think about this, but waste comes out as a gas. So when you're breathing out like carbon dioxide, there is a lot of toxins that come out in gas form. And then of course we breathe in pure oxygen. And then lastly is the skin, the largest organ in the body. Toxins come out of our skin when we sweat. So average toxic loss each day is 2 pounds. Now this also explains some things like typically when people start getting really bad skin problems, rashes, itching, whatever it is, that's often a sign that the elimination systems are not keeping up. And the skin is often the last system to try to detox. And if your liver is not working and the colon's not moving and the kidneys aren't moving and the lymph, then the skin tries to take the bulk of it, and that usually does not work well. So liver, you all need it. Bowel movements to check your colon. How well are you going urinating? Are you urinating enough? Are you urinating too often? That could be a sign that the kidneys just can't filter correctly. Lymph. Well, how do you know if your lymph isn't moving? Well, it depends on, are you physically moving? Are you drinking water? And are you deep breathing? If you're not doing those 3 things, you probably need lymph drainage. Lungs, you know, how much do you exercise and breathe? And then a skin, how much are you out there sweating? Are you doing things that actually get the body to sweat? So this is kind of how you can check your elimination channels. And of course, when it really gets into cleanses are usually pretty easy for everyone. But when it really gets into deep detoxing, you really probably should work with some type of health professional who can help you identify where your drainage systems are weak, because the last thing you want to do is try to do a detox and do it wrong and you just stir up toxins and you don't actually get them out, you will feel often and awful, and your symptoms can get a lot worse. You really probably should work with a professional if you really need help understanding how to detox. So detox is different than a cleanse. Cleansing is normally like there's a kidney cleanse out there, there's liver cleanses, there's colon cleanses, but that's not really deep detoxing. So when we're detoxing, we want to make sure that all the elimination channels are open, and there's a number of other things we want to check.
You bring up a good point here. And you hear, practically speaking, you hear of these liver cleanses and these intestinal cleanses, and you get like these teas and these boxes and these packages, and you get a colon cleanse. Dr. Monzo, it's really tough for me to believe that one cleanse once a year is going to do the trick.
Not anymore. It might have been that like 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
And so, practically speaking, what's important for our listeners to understand when we're speaking of keeping these systems clean on an everyday basis?
And that's where the cleanses kind of come more in. Cleanses are good to prepare your body for detox, and then to continually keep the body flushing stuff out. But if you do a colon cleanse, do not think you've gotten all the toxins out of your body. Because a lot of them are really deep in the cells. And that colon cleanse isn't going to get things out of the cells. It's just going to cleanse the colon. So
it's about maintaining a healthy bowel. It's about maintaining adequate cell energy. It's about maintaining adequate mineral nutriture and hydration for the kidneys. It's about maintaining exercise on an everyday basis for the lymphs, right? That's, and I think once a year, you can blow out the pipes, so to say. It may not be a bad idea, but I think the maintenance is the most crucial on an everyday basis.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest takeaway with the elimination channels and the pathways of elimination. If that's your daily maintenance or monthly maintenance, you could do a different cleanse every month if you wanted to, just to really make sure things are getting out of the body. And then once a year, do a really big detox, and you should probably work with someone.
Yeah, for sure.
Get into that on this next slide. So I've been doing this a long time, and I can tell you that even in the holistic health field, there is a lot of people who do not know how to detox right, and they will get you into a lot of problems. I see it all the time. People come to my office thinking they did a detox, and when I ask them what they did, I was like, oh man. And then when we do evaluations, they're loaded. They're more toxic now than they probably were before. And it's like, well, you're not doing it right. So these are the things, really these 5 things are things you want to look for if you're actually doing a detox right. And you probably need help with this. Number 1, you need proper nutrition, right? We always talk about the 90 essential nutrients. Why? Because those are the building blocks of the body, and it's the energy supply. So if you don't have energy to rebuild and cleanse, and you try doing a detox, you're going to run out of energy and your body's going to crash. And that's because just detoxing itself, even if you have all your nutrients, is draining to your energy. You're going to feel drained. You're going to feel tired. So if you don't already have the nutrition, there's a problem. So the first thing we really would recommend before ever doing a detox is make sure you're on the 90 essential nutrients for at least 3 months, and you're nutrifying the body and giving the body what it's going to need, the raw materials, to actually start cleansing and rebuilding. So you have to have that energy supply and the building blocks. Then you need a cleansing agent, usually called a chelator. So this pulls the toxins out of the cells and the tissues. And we like using natural ones, herbal ones, and things like that, not toxic chemicals like EDTA would be more of a medical approach to chelating, right? It's not a whole food substance. It's actually a synthetic substance. It does a great job at chelating, but it will also force the body to detox, and it will pull out all your nutrients at the same time. So we want to use more natural chelators that we find in herbs and diet and nutrition to do this job instead of really harsh agents that force it. So that's the cleansing agent or the chelator. Then we need the drainage support, which we just talked about. We need something to help open up the elimination organs and pathways. There's a lot of great herbal combinations, sometimes homeopathics, that open up the elimination channels, all 6 of them, to make sure you're flushing the toxins out of the body. Because once we pull them out of the tissues and the cells, we need to get them out of the body. And so if those elimination systems are closed off and you're pulling things out of the tissues, you're going to have this mess. It's kind of like, you know, 3 different roads all leading to the exact same highway and everyone's trying to get on at the same time. It's like, who designed this? At rush hour at 5:30 in the evening when you're trying to get home and there's 4 roads all leading to one, you're like, what? So you don't want that. You want to be able to make sure the stuff's getting out. And then there's the 4th thing is binders. Do we need extra binder support to make sure we're binding up stuff in the gut and eliminating it? Not everyone always needs binders, but if you have a problem with bowel movements, you probably need binders to really make sure that stuff's not getting reabsorbed in the gut. Sometimes when you start a cleanse, you start going less. That's a sign that you need more support for the drainage and for the binders to really get the stuff out. And the last thing we really need to check for people is, do you need methylation support? This is probably the one step that I see most overlooked by most practitioners, is methylation is a real thing. Some people, this falls in the category of epigenetics. That means your genes are not written in stone like people used to think. Our old concepts of genes and genetics is very kind of misplaced. There are really just probably, I can't give you a number, but very few things are really written in stone. A lot of your functions of the body are based on epigenetics, which are genes that can be turned on and off and get changed based on the environment. So if you have methylation genes that have been turned off, we need to get those genes turned back on, and then the methylation can affect all these different cycles. They call them methylation cycles or methylation pathways. And most people don't realize it. We mostly think of phase 2 liver detox, but the reality is I wrote down there on the bottom the different systems that methylation actually relates to, the different cycles of methylation. It can relate to the liver, cardiovascular, the kidneys, the gut, neurological, and the mitochondria. All of those systems can be affected by the different methylation pathways. So this is a lot more than just the MTHFR gene. There are hundreds of methylation genes that support the body's process of eliminating things out of the body. And so if that process isn't working, we need to usually give you methyl donors and the appropriate nutrients. When we're struggling with methylation, the biggest thing we're going to have a problem with is your B vitamins, specifically B9 and B12. They need to be methylated, and if you have a methylation problem, you can't do that. So you need methylated B vitamins. And if that's not happening, then what can happen is you can get into a situation where your body really doesn't eliminate stuff out. You're pulling it out of the tissues and the cells, but it has nowhere to go. And now you're just creating a toxic mess of, you know, it's kind of like, instead of filtering that fishbowl that was all toxic, that's like taking the fishbowl and shaking it up. And then, you know, you come back in a day later and it's all dirty still because it really didn't come out. So these are the things you really should be looking at if you're going to do a real detox. And you probably need a practitioner to help you with that.
Dr. Monzo, I'm so grateful you bring up the epigenome and how it can directly affect these methylation pathways and these sulfation pathways at liver phase 2, but how big of a problem is this really in our population? Is this significant? Is this something that at least one person in every household should think about?
Probably. I mean, medically, they say about 50% of the population has a methylation problem. In my years of working with people, I find it's about 70% that come in to see me. Now, that's hard to say because typically healthy people don't come in to see me. Most people coming in to see me have health problems. So, it might be a little skewed, but I have seen usually about 70% of the people that see me need some type of methylation support. It might not be as bad as they have a bunch of gene issues, but I would say a lot of them do. And I've also seen time periods when it was as high as almost 99% of the people I was seeing during a certain time period was having methylation problems, which I find very interesting. So you really wonder, there's something that goes on in the environment at certain times that really mess with our methylation genes. And it's a big thing because so many people are not talking about it. And I think a lot of people who do talk about it, unfortunately, kind of have the old gene concept, which, okay, this gene is turned off. There's nothing you can do with it. It's hereditary and you just have to suffer with it. And it's like, well, that's not true. We can correct them. We can get them turned back on, but it takes lifestyle change and the proper nutrition and all those things.
It's really good. It's really good.
All right. So just kind of back on topic. So you can see if you're having a problem with this or with these elimination channels, is the problem really Lyme and you got bit by a bite, or is it because these systems are not really working and the toxins are building up and then you get the exposure and all of a sudden your body crashes because it can't handle it? And this is why, if all you're having a problem, if your nutrition is good and your body's cleansing and that's good, and you get exposure, hey, it might not be that bad. But let's say someone else, they don't have good nutrition, they're not cleansing, their drainage pathways are only like half open, they have methylation issues, and then they get the bite and they get some type of exposure. It could cause a major crash, and it could be like debilitating where they can't get out of bed. And now you can see why. Well, because you have all these elimination processes, your body has a way to get the toxins out of the body. And if you're the type of person that wasn't happening for, anything else, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Any more exposure into the system and your body just can't handle it. Whereas someone else,
the threshold phenomenon.
It's the threshold phenomenon. The cleaner your water bowl is, the more you're gonna stress you can handle. So now we're getting into the second topic. Finally, that was a long introduction. The rest of it goes faster, and the rest of this you guys probably should know by now. Root causes. Well, nutritional imbalances. Your body can't do anything if it doesn't have the nutrients. Obviously, the bad foods, and this is the thing we really have to think about. A lot of people, the majority of people out there, if they do anything, they will probably do their 90th onto nutrients. But then you have to really ask them, are you really cleaning up your lifestyle? What are you eating? What are you bathing in? What do you use as shampoo? What do you use as soap? What are you cleaning your countertops with? What are you cleaning your dishes with? What are you doing washing your clothes right then? Are you using a bunch of toxic chemicals? Because if you are, then your toxic environment, you're using toxins, they're going to get into your body. So the first step is just proper nutrition. And then the second step is now let's start working on our diet. After that, then it's like, well, now we have to start cleaning up our lifestyle and our environment. You can't change the environment that's out there. What's in the air and the water and the food, we're stuck with. You're just going to have that. But the things that you do, excuse me, can change, like what you're using to wash your countertops, what you're using as soap and shampoo and washing your clothes and washing your dishes. You have control over that. So why pick the most toxic substances? Don't be doing that. Don't go outside and spray your yard for weeds. That's going to get into your body. So clean up your environment so this stuff is not building up. That way you have more resistance. Now, if you have a tick bite or something, you don't really have to worry about it as much because you've taken care of the first process of cleaning up the body, cleaning up your environment. You're going to be stronger. Okay? Plastics, pesticides, food additives, soy, all this stuff. You're going to mess up your hormones. And then if your hormones are already messed up, that means you probably have toxins in the body. You probably don't have your nutrients like you think. And then when you get some invaders coming in, you're going to be even more miserable.
It can't thrive if you're thriving. And that's why they call them opportunists, because they're going to take the opportunity when you're not.
Exactly. Mental emotional stress. And this is a great place to add in this concept of, because we really haven't talked about this one before, there is these laws of attraction. A lot of people think that's kind of like a woo-woo thing. It's not. It's actually a scientific principle. It's in the Bible. So what happens if you are full of fear and you are dreading, oh no, what about the ticks? Am I going to be? Then most likely you're going to attract that to you. But the things that you're afraid of the most are probably the things you're going to invite into your life because you're focused on them. If you're not focused on them and they're out of mind and you're not worried about them, it's kind of like they bounce off. So our mental emotional stress, the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so he is. So that's the concept of our thoughts are very powerful. And if we think bad things are going to happen to us all the time, bad things are going to happen. It's just the way it is. We need to have those positive attitudes. We need to have that warrior mentality of, I'm not going to stress and worry about all this stuff out there. I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Movement. Obviously, a lot of the elimination systems work better when you're moving, especially the lymph, but really any of them. If you want to be sweating toxins out, you probably need to be getting your body sweating, whether that's exercise or going into a sauna or doing something. It's movement. You have to have movement for the lymph system to drain. But what else is movement? Well, bowel movements are movement. So are your bowels moving? If they're not moving, then we need to get things going to make sure the bowels are moving so stuff are not building back up. You got injuries and scar tissue. Big one. Why? Because it blocks energy flow. And it's very important to have the energy systems in the body flowing correctly. So this is another thing to look at. Two people get fit. One person debilitated, one person that they don't have any problems. And here's the reality. People really focus on these Lyme bacteria. Well, I do think there's a difference between what's being made in a laboratory and what is naturally occurring, gain of function. But the reality is, even if you do like live blood analysis and stuff, for over 20, 30 years, I have always seen Lyme-like bacteria in people. You almost do not find anyone who does not have the bacteria that relates to Lyme, but they don't have Lyme disease. So again, it's a label. Well, how can people have the same infections but not the same symptoms. Well, maybe because it's not the infection. And so if you don't have any scar tissue and you don't have any injuries, guess what? Your body's threshold is going to be a lot stronger than someone else who has a lot of injuries and scar tissues, who has more congested energy. Now, all of a sudden, their body can't fight off things as easy. They don't have as much threshold. Trauma, same thing. Lack of sleep. If you don't have sleep, your body just can't thrive. It's just, you need sleep. Sleep is when your body repairs and when you decompress and de-stress. And if you're not getting sleep, you're going to go into burnout. So doing too much all the time, running yourself dry. You don't want to be doing that. We have that old saying, work out. We don't really want to do workouts. We want to exercise. Working out is a bad idea. Because again, it's all about keeping your threshold high and having this vitality. If we're doing things that burn out the vitality, then why would we be when you get sick? It just doesn't make sense. And of course, there are a lot of bad drugs out there. I list a couple of these. These ones are usually bigger on the list just because they deplete so many nutrients out of the body that people don't realize. And when you start depleting those nutrients, the building blocks, the body's going to break down and it's not going to be able to fight things off. Anything you want to add on that one?
That's brilliant. And if you're listening to this, rewind and listen to that again.
All right. We'll move on to the next one, which I think is lifestyle. Okay. So if those are the things we want to not be doing, what do we want to be doing? Well, we want to focus on whole foods. We talk about this all the time. I mean, that's what AzureWell is all about, is bringing you whole food nutrition and not synthetic supplements with all kinds of fillers and nonsense in them. And I think anyone who's out there is realizing more and more these days, there's more and more companies popping up or companies being bought out that just don't care about what they're putting in your nutrients. And that's not just talking about your nutrients that you take or supplements, but it's also talking about what you put into your mouth, right? So instead of going to the store and buying a bunch of boxed food or canned food, why don't we go to the local farmer's market and buy real food? Alkalize your diet, making sure we're getting a lot of alkalized foods and we're not becoming overly acidic, at least in your tissues. That's not the same as the digestive tract. We want the digestive tract to be acidic, but we don't want your tissues and your cells becoming acidic. And there's supposed to be a really nice balance there, and your body is supposed to be balancing that out. But if you're not getting real whole foods, real vegetables, real fruits, a lot of raw stuff, probably not going to happen. And minerals are huge in this. Your body's going to need minerals to balance pH. If you don't have any mineral reserves, your body's going to have a hard time balancing pH, and it's going to have to steal things from places you don't want it stolen. This is a lot of problems with people with their bones and issues like that. And blood is the body will steal things from deeper in your tissues and the bones. It will steal minerals to make sure your blood is alkaline correctly. The proper pH of blood is super important and it cannot change. So your body has to get the material somewhere. And if it doesn't have the materials, it will steal it. And so then you have another area of your body that's breaking down. Energize with the essential nutrients. We need the 90 essential nutrients. Support the detox pathways. And we're going to talk about supplements or nutrients here in a minute. And we're going to talk about some really powerful herbs for pathway elimination and detox. Gut balance, very critical. So when we're dealing with bacteria and parasites and these different pathogens, The gut needs to be balanced. There needs to be a good microbiome there. If you have a healthy microbiome, they don't want to remain. And then you don't have to worry about the yeast and the parasites and all that. They're going to want to move out. But when that gut is not balanced and there's all types of toxins there and build up and the gut lining is all inflamed, then all the critters move in and they have a cleanup job to do. They're there for a reason. And they're going to be opportunistic and they're going to cause more problems. It's not that they don't cause problems. They're just not the main cause. But they definitely cause more problems once they move in. So then you have this catch-22. Now they're going to make toxins and they're going to steal your nutrients and they're going to steal your stuff. So now they're creating a bigger problem to a simpler problem, which was before you just needed to detox. Now you're going to need to detox and move these guys out. Give them notice. Restore your neuroendocrine system. Very important. It's important for everything because your body needs to function, and you need to have this energy supply with the endocrine system. But at the same time, you need to have the peace of mind and the sanity to function in life. And when the neuroendocrine system gets messed up, then you might not be able to handle as much stress. You're going to be distracted. And everything is harder. So restoring the neuroendocrine system, and this could be as simple as making sure you're getting proper sleep, making sure you're trying to keep your cycles right. When the sun's going down, we should be sleeping. When the sun's coming up, we should be getting up. We shouldn't be staying up all night long on blue screens. So making sure we're doing things to keep our cycles in tune to nature. And there are great herbal supplements from Azure that helps with the neuroendocrine system, with helping the thyroid and the adrenals. Adaptogens are really powerful for this. Exercise the lymph. Make sure you're moving every day because that is what pumps the lymph. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water and deep breathing as well. But you need to make sure the body's moving to move stuff out. Achieve a healthy mind and spirit. We've talked about that before, but that's so important. The 8 hours of sleep, really getting that rest, and address the energetic body. Sometimes we talk about that more on these shows. I really didn't put any slides in today about Alpha body or the energy pathways, because when it comes to detoxing and things like Lyme and autoimmune and all these things, you could throw up every single pathway in the body. It really depends on the person. So that's why we treat the person, not the disease, because who knows what pathways you might need help with. But almost all the pathways are related to this in some fashion. So we would have to show you the whole book to cover that. We're still on lifestyle. So this is this chart again. We threw a couple more lines in here now. So you're really getting the difference between modern medicine and natural health care. So we've talked about one replaces hormones and one supports the hormones. Synthetic versus natural minerals and nutrients. Forcing the body versus encouraging the body. And now we're adding a couple more here. One is the symptom management, one is root cause. Modern medicine, their focus is kill the pathogen. Well, that doesn't do anything for toxins. That doesn't do anything to stop the pathogens from coming back. It's not addressing the cause. Whereas natural health care, we're talking about restoring the terrain and making it so the pathogens don't want to be there and that they're not attracted to come back. And then one is a very anti-elimination process, and one is to encourage the elimination in the body. When you really stop and think about it, a lot of the drugs are really anti-elimination. They stop the body from the natural processes of eliminating toxins out of the body because it's uncomfortable to detox. And I think that's the biggest thing that people misunderstand sometimes. When you first start in detox, it is not uncommon to feel worse before you feel better. And that scares a lot of people because if you start feeling worse, you assume you're actually physically getting worse. But that might not be. It's just, if you can imagine eliminating things out of the body that's not supposed to be there, that's not a comfortable process. It requires energy. It requires getting stuff out. It's just not always the most comfortable thing, but it's a necessity. And if we do it, and we do it correctly, when you keep up with the process, it's very easy to keep up with. It only gets difficult when you have this huge accumulation and you need to get it out. But if you're keeping up with it, it's just a natural process and you don't really feel anything. So that's the difference in perspectives here, which is why you don't diagnose the disease, because the disease only leads you to this side of the chart under modern medicine. It doesn't tell you root cause. It doesn't restore the terrain. It doesn't eliminate. It doesn't address any of the real issues.
Yeah, I think just quickly here, Dr. Monzo, the point I want to emphasize back on that previous slide is it can be as dangerous to utilize nutrition in an allopathic manner as it is to take a conventional approach. And so be mindful of what Dr. Monzo is saying under the column natural health care and what that represents. Oftentimes I come across many that utilize nutrition in an allopathic way, replacing A with A, B with B, C with C, D with D along the lines, and never getting to the root understanding. So keep this in front of you in your health journey.
I think HR just brought up a really good point here. It's really important because you will find a lot of people in the natural health world who think what we need to do is use the most powerful herb to kill the pathogen.
Muscle, more is better.
And what they're not understanding is if you have tons of heavy metals and pesticides and toxins in the body, that's attracting the pathogens. What's the point of killing them off if you haven't taken away what attracts them? They're just going to come right back, and they might come back with a vengeance. And so that's why I see there's a lot of these gimmicks today with, you could say, the mainstream wanting to mislead us. Every time we start getting to the truth, it's like, shift you back over here. And what have we been seeing a lot in this last year? All of a sudden now it's like all cancerous parasites. And we have ivermectin and hydrochloroquine. We have pharmaceutical drugs. And it's like, what? Why are we back to killing the pathogen again? You didn't change your perspective at all. It was like you were starting to learn about the terrain theory, and then they brought you right back over here like, oh, well, you know, this is going to take care of, the drugs are going to take care of everything. And it's like, no, they're not. So, and I don't get why so many people, even in the natural health world, want to jump right back into the pharmaceutical drugs and back into this idea of let's just kill the pathogens and all of our problems are going to go away. And it's like, that's not really true. We really need to follow nature and go through the elimination process of getting the junk out of the body without forcing it.
That's good.
Because that's the other big thing you see a lot with the synthetic supplements. Synthetic supplements are the same thing as synthetic drugs. They're going to try to force the body to do something instead of encouraging the body to do something. There's a big difference there. Nutrition. A lot of these we've covered before. Whole food vegetables, whole food grains, real food, you know, healthy fats, no seed oils, the 90 essential nutrients. Your minerals are so important. Your B vitamins, especially if you have a methylation problem, you might want to be looking at methylated Bs, 9 and B12, the sunshine, antioxidants, but I kind of want to focus here on the herbals. So when we're looking at drainage herbals, these are some of the top ones. It's not all of them. I mean, we could probably make a list of like 50 herbs. That's just for beginners. But these are probably some of the most common ones you're going to see that help with the elimination channels. Milk thistle, beetroot, dandelion root, red clover, nettle, cleavers, the burdock, stradulus. These are things that are very common you're going to see. And these are things you can be looking for in the AzureWell line. and see what products kind of have these things. Some of these are better for elimination with the liver, and some of them are better for the lymph and the kidneys. But a lot of companies will actually have products that will be called drainage support, or filtering organ drainage, or some type of drainage and elimination. I know here recently I've been working with Azure. We're trying to work on some newer products kind of on those lines. They're obviously not ready. It takes so long to bring a quality product to market, because you really have to make sure you have the formula right, and you have to make sure they're getting quality nutrient or product ingredients, that they're processing them correctly, that they're actually going to do what we want them to do. And so that takes a very long time to hash that all out. But we do have this in our mind that we want to bring in more of these type of products. But even right now, AzureWell has a number of products that have a lot of these great ingredients already in them. So we're going to talk about that. The first thing we're going to talk about when it comes to this topic is we need the proper nutrients in the body. So let's get the 90 essential nutrients, and this is basically a roundabout way, the 90 essential nutrients with a little bit of extra copper in it. That might be needed, it might not be needed. It depends on if you need the extra copper, and it also depends on our whole food multi. It is real food, so sometimes its copper content is higher from the food, and sometimes it's lower. It depends on what's in the ground and what's getting into the plants. So right now, the copper content is a little bit lower. I think on our next supply, it's going to be a lot higher. So that gets changed on the website. So you can look at the website and see where's the copper content. I tell most people you probably want to be getting between 1 to 3 milligrams a day of the copper. But this would be your way of getting your 90 essential nutrients and really building the body. And this is something you really want to do for at least 3 months, maybe even 6 months before you really go into any serious detox. We're talking a real detox, as I was showing with those 5 steps, not just a cleanse. You can pick up a colon cleanse, a kidney cleanse, and a liver cleanse. That's probably not going to be a problem. It's probably not going to kill you or anything. But real detox, where you're starting to pull things out of the tissues and the cells, you're going to want to be neutrified first.
And I just really want to emphasize the point that none of these, not one single product, are here to treat the disease. These are here. These won't work if you treat the disease. It's not going to work, guys. Sorry. These are here to support the body's natural state and homeostasis and balance and the natural structure function of the body. They are not here to treat any disease, but to support the body and maintain its natural balance so it can thrive.
And think about how much we lose when you have that mindset. Imagine if we had the mindset, oh, what are you going to give me for Lyme? Well, that's very limiting. Would you even think about having your 90 essential nutrients? You mentioned the 90 essential nutrients, and a person would probably think, what's that going to do for Lyme? Well, you don't get it. We're not treating disease, we're treating the body. What do you mean, what is it going to do? It's going to make everything in the body better, because it's the basic building blocks. It's the basic nutrients the body needs. So that whole mindset changes your complete idea and focus. And so you can become very narrow-minded in thinking, oh, we're wasting time on nutrients, let's go kill the thing. It's like, no, that's the wrong approach. The next one here is a lot of products that's going to help the gut, the microbiome, and digestion. So a lot of these here are digestive enzymes, different types. You can see the 2 in the middle. You have digestive aid. This is hydrochloric acid, really important for the digestive system, specifically the stomach. It's the first process of breaking down your food. The one next to it, pepsin, this is like a hydrochloric acid catalyst. So it helps support the body's ability to make its own hydrochloric acid while still breaking down your food. Why is this important? Well, if you can't break down your food, you're not going to be absorbing any of your nutrients. So this is a primary focus, is digestive system. If the digestive system's not healthy, nothing else is going to be, because this is how you get the nutrients into your body. If your body cannot break things down and assimilate and absorb the nutrients, you're just making more mess to eliminate. So we need to get the digestive system working. Now, there's another one here called Every Meal Digestive Enzymes that it's not really focused on hydrochloric acid in the stomach. It's really focused on the entire digestive tract and having enzymes that break down kind of like all types of foods. Okay, and then you have stomach soothing support. That's more for like an upset stomach, or when you have a lot of inflammation in the gut and the intestinal lining and you want to calm it down. It has the ginger and the fennel and the very smoothing herbs. I think there's some mucolytic herbs in there. So it's a very nice calming support to calm down the inflammation in the gut. Really key to treat the gut first, because the first key we talked about was nutrients. Getting the 90 essential nutrients into the body. But if your digestive system can't break things down, then you're not going to be absorbing your nutrients. And then it's going to lead into microbiome issues, because now you're going to have a lot of toxic stuff building up into the digestive tract that should have been broken down. And this is not a good way to start. So let's repair that gut health and make sure we're absorbing our nutrients. Then we get into the immune support in the microbiome. What are some things we can do to really help that microbiome? Okay, well, we have proteolytic enzymes. Now, these can be used with food. They're called dual purpose. They can be used with food or without food. So they're going to help with circulation, blood flow, breaking down unwanted substances, cleaning up the microbiome. Some people like to use them along with parasite cleanses because it helps break down stuff. We have two products here in the middle that really help for getting the critters out and helping the gut mobility, and that means moving stuff out, and the lining of the gut. So you have your Parapunch GI Defender and your Katava Gut Advantage. Both of them are powerful. You can use the two together. Really powerful used together. Then you have Recover Immune Vitality Supplement. This is a phenomenal one for the immune system, but it also helps the intestinal health, activates the innate and adaptive immune system. There's like 400 milligrams of beta glucans in there. Very powerful. If you've never heard of beta glucans, very powerful for the immune system. So these are ways to help the gut lining and the immune system. Now, the last thing we want to address then is cleansing the pathways. Now, we threw a couple of things up here, but it should be said that if you go to the AzureWell website, there are a lot more products you could definitely use for cleansing. These are the big ones. So for like chelators, you have the 3 Greens liquid chlorella, you have the pure chlorella, both extremely powerful. I really love the 3 Greens, such a great product. You have the bentonite detoxification clay. That is kind of like a classical binder. So if you know you're not having those good bowel movements to really get stuff out and you're doing some type of cleanser detox, this is going to be something good to make sure you're binding up those toxins in the colon so they're not being reabsorbed. And then you might want to use one of those gut formulas to get the mobility of the gut going that we just talked about, like the Kajanza Advantage or something like that. And then you have the Circ Your Heart enzymes. These are very powerful, maybe often overlooked as far as cleansing, because part of the cleansing is the blood and the lymph. And so this product does have herbals in there that specifically help with cardiovascular health and circulation, but it also has proteolytic enzymes in there to help break stuff down and move it out. So this is a great way to kind of help cleanse circulation, lymph. And there's so many other products. I mean, I can think of thyroid cleanse and bile gallbladder action support and IP6, which would be another good binder. There's so many other products on the AzureWell website that would be really good for the cleansing and eliminating. But these are probably some of the biggest ones that we can talk about. Anything you want to add in there, HR, about some of the AzureWell supplements?
I think that this is good. I think it's just, you know, again here, Dr. Monzo does not treat any conditions, nor does he diagnose or prevent any type of diseases. He treats the human frame in supporting it and to optimize your health. The statements that he's making here, they have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, and realize the products here are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So these are all here to support the body in its already natural state, in its already natural state of structure and function, and to listen, these stressors that are out there, they're for real. And we don't have a protective shield that we walk around, but we can set ourselves up by the choices that we make every day with our diet, with our lifestyle, and how we supplement our body to maintain that natural homeostasis, that natural balance to allow it to thrive. So, Dr. Monzo, I thank you again for doing this deep dive. I hope that our listeners understand that whatever they're faced with, whatever label that there is to their stress, that there are answers, and that they can support their body and allow it to thrive again, and to reach out. We AzureWell is a community of uncompromised network of resources and information where we can support you in your health journey. So again, Dr. Monzo, thank you. We appreciate everything that you do. It's always a privilege to have you on here, sir.
Well, thank you. Pleasure was mine.
And bye for now. Thank you.
See you, everyone.